Susan, are you ready?
We just gotta wait for Roger. He's gonna give us an icon. We're good? Okay, we're good.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Education to order and ask everyone to please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just before I go to public comment, I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a great holiday. And I'll ask the district clerk if there's anyone signed up for public comment. Okay, there being none, we'll move on now to the superintendent's report. Dr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. I too would like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. Just as a reminder, this is a special meeting because the last meeting we moved to a virtual meeting only due to the snowstorm. So we still have our regularly scheduled meeting coming up on the 19th of this month as well. I just wanted to give a brief update now that we are back in school after the holiday recess. Just before the break, we did end our preseason winter sports practices. Students had the opportunity to participate for 2 months, 5 days a week in preseason activities for basketball, winter track, and wrestling. And starting this Monday, low-risk sports, including winter track and bowling, started here at the high school. So we have roughly 40 boys and girls now participating in varsity winter track, and 10 boys and girls on our bowling teams who are going to compete for Locust Valley in Section 8 this year. This winter. As we learn more about high-risk winter sports, which is basketball and wrestling, we certainly will share that with the community. I know that Dr. Turner has been involved in conversations at the county and state level about next steps for these sport teams. I did want to give an update to the community as well on our COVID notification letters. We continue to try to balance providing the community with information on positive cases and close contacts along with maintaining the privacy of our students, teachers, and staff. Since September, we have had a total of 66 positive COVID cases for the Locust Valley School District, our students, teachers, and staff. Associated with those 66 positive cases, we identified 302 close contacts through our contact tracing process. If we look deeper at those numbers, of those 66 positive cases, 24 have been since December 23rd, which was the beginning of the holiday break, with 55 associated close contacts. And we will continue to share all COVID-related information with the community as we move forward, just as we have done all along. But I wanted to just reiterate that we're doing so to provide our community with as much information as possible and maintain the privacy of all of our students, our staff, and our teachers. I do invite everyone to check out our website to listen to our student holiday music performances. They're all up there and you can click on links for them. They were great before the holidays and I'm sure you would enjoy them just as much now. And I also invite you to register for a ticket to our upcoming high school performance of Puff, which is a comedic retelling of the Harry Potter book series. The student performance of Puff was done in a manner that observes social distancing, and it will be live streamed on January 16th and January 17th. So if you go to our website, you can find information about how to order your access code for the performance. Lastly, I would like to take a moment to recognize one of our 10th grade students, Jack Baker. Jack created a memorial to honor the lives lost due to COVID-19 in front of Village Hall in Bayville. For the memorial, Jack, with the help of his brother Liam, a Locust Valley 7th grader, placed 2,293 American flags on the lawn of Bayville Village Hall, one for each Nassau County resident who died from the coronavirus. For his work, Jack has been recognized as a young person who can make a difference in the world. So I wanted to just congratulate both Jack and his brother Liam. This evening, we're going to present to the board and to the community an update on our capital and facilities work. And so at this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Meliambro, our Assistant Superintendent, and Mr. Nakatavicius, our Director of Facilities, to join me in that presentation. So I'll start it off from where I am. As mentioned, this is our capital project update and budget survey feedback. And this is just an agenda of what we're going to discuss within the presentation. So when we talk about capital projects, we need to identify how capital projects are funded. And they're funded in two ways. The first is a budgetary appropriation for interfund transfer from general fund to capital fund. So what does that mean in layman's terms? That means when we build our expenditure budget and the public authorizes those expenditures, we have a line that's going to be directly transferred to capital. So that's within our general fund. The second way is we have a capital reserve. And we can go, or the board can choose to go to the community and request that the community authorize an expenditure from that capital reserve. So that's money we already have in a reserve, and when monies are withdrawn from there, it requires a separate referendum from the community, and it doesn't impact the tax levy within that given year. So it's important to just understand where the income sources for those capital projects are coming from. And so I'm going to ask Ms. Meliambro to talk to some of the slides within here as well.
So over the last 5 years, these are the amounts of funds that went into the capital fund from one of the two ways that Dr. Graham just talked about. The transfers from the general fund to capital fund, you can see there, were increased twice in 1819 and then again in 1920. And the reasons for the $800,000 increases in those years, first of all, because we have projects that need to be done, we have significant amount of work, but the transfers to capital are part of what are called exclusions in our tax cap formula. And those exclusions, it's better for the district if they remain relatively stable, because if they go up or down, they impact the tax cap in a positive or a negative way. So in those 2 years, 17, 18, 18, 19, we had debt dropping off. We had final payments on 2 of our debt issues. So debt payments are also included in the exclusions. So it was a perfect time to increase the transfer to capital because it offset the decreases in what we had to spend in debt. And so our exclusions remained stable and our tax cap formula was not affected. So, and as I said, we have ample projects, so 2.5 million is a significant amount, but we have the work needing to be done. The reserve withdrawals that were made over the past 5 years were just in each of 3 years. Those are separately voted, as Dr. Graham mentioned. It's a separate proposition on the ballot. The voters have to approve the dollar amount and the projects. So in 16-17, these are the projects that were done from each of the funding sources, the transfers to general fund, from general fund, and from the capital reserve. And you can see that there are overages and underages because the projects are initially estimated before the design is complete. And as with any projects you do in your home, things are under or overestimated. Sometimes there are unforeseen circumstances that cause an overage. Sometimes change orders are needed. And sometimes it depends on when you conduct the bidding. If the bidding is done earlier in the year, you generally get a better price. But these overages and underages stay within the capital fund. That money stays in that fund. So in other years or for other projects, if you go over, you have some place to get the money from. So this was a good year. Everything seemed to come in under, and those are just the projects that were done. The next year, we had a couple of projects that actually ran over significantly, which members of this board were here for. The security vestibule in the high school and the home and careers room. So we went over in those projects and actually had to go into the next year's funding because they were significantly over. This, if you recall, the high school vestibule bid came in at almost double the estimated amount, as well as the home and career room. So we didn't do quite as well over and under, but we did accomplish great projects in that year. And then we move into the next year, and you see that we have the overage from the high school vestibule and the home and careers room had to be taken into account with that year's funding. And we did okay with the other projects. Except for the BP playground, and I think you're all familiar with the story there. We had some problems with the installation of the adaptive equipment in the BP playground, and we had to have another company come in and redo the work. This is the most current year, and you can see that most of the projects did come in under the estimate, except for the boys' locker room that came in over, and this board actually approved the change order this year for that work. And also, we had talked about replacing the track in this year, and in December, Eric had a track installation company come in, and they determined that we actually had 3 or 4 good years left on that track. And at the same time, the architects who were involved in the discussions said that if we had the intention of doing a turf field anytime in the near future, they didn't recommend replacing the track last year because you would do significant damage to it if you did a turf field within the next few years. So the decision was made last January to replace that track by just doing a resurfacing, which gave us 3 or 4 more years out of the track, and we were able to do 2 other projects, the gutter replacements at LVI and the roof at LVI. And we did incur architect fees for the development of the design for the track and the turf field. But overall, except for the locker room, those projects came in under this year, so that was good. And the projects that are going on with the current year's budget are the roof replacement at the middle school, high school, an elevator at BP, and some other security items. These projects will be begun before the end of June, and the work is expected to be completed by the end of the summer.
Are there any questions from the board on the 5-year look back of projects that were proposed, were authorized, and ultimately completed? Okay, so recently, in the month of November, we administered a community input survey for our 21-22 budget. And we asked a series of questions in terms of budget priorities, and then individuals had the opportunity to weigh in on things that they would like to see included within future budgets. So this survey was met with some decent responses. We had 254 responses, and the respondents included all facets of our community: alumni, business owners, parents, parents of former students, Falcon Pride, Parent Council. We had some employees respond as well. And the priorities expressed by the survey, and these are the 3 overwhelming priorities, were hiring and retaining quality staff. 66% of the individuals expressed that as a priority in our budgeting, providing students with quality learning materials and tools, and maintaining small class sizes. Now, within the capital portion, again, I mentioned that individuals had an opportunity to provide input on things that they would like to see. What Ms. Meliambro did was go through with Mr. Nakatavicius all of the items that were related to capital and begin to look for patterns that emerged. And the emerging themes that we saw from the survey in terms of community input were air conditioning and air purification systems. And one of the things that I think is important to mention at this time is we did, within the current budget, purchase a HEPA filter for every single classroom in our district, and those are all installed and running at this time. And in addition to the AC and air purification systems, there were emerging themes related to athletic facility upgrades, including turf field for the football field. And I know that that's something that's been discussed here in the past. So now, what has to happen next? Remember, this is the very beginning of our budget process for 21-22, is we need to identify that we will continue to have that $2.5 million transfer from general fund to capital work, and what projects will be included within there. The board will need to decide whether or not it chooses to have a capital reserve withdrawal included for capital work, and what projects would be included in there. And our current capital reserve balance is just a little over $11 million. And as I mentioned, those projects being considered will be discussed throughout the budget development process. Now, the Facilities Committee met earlier this evening, and they will continue to meet throughout the budget cycle, and they will make recommendations to the Board of Education with regard to the projects to include both from the general fund and from the capital reserve. So, we included there because this is, as I mentioned, the very beginning of a series of presentations that we will do on the budget. And for those of you watching at home, we'll have the presentation up on our website either this evening or tomorrow morning. This budget calendar was adopted earlier this year by the Board of Education. It's there for your viewing. And we're looking forward to seeing you at meetings later this winter to discuss the 21-22 budget. So thank you, Ms. Meliambro and Mr. Nakatavicius. And if there are any questions on the presentation from the board, we'll take them at this time.
Open it up for any discussion on the board. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Anything else for the superintendent's report?
That is all.
Thank you very much. I also do want to share the Vice President, Margaret Marchand, sends her regards and apologizes for her absence and asks to be excused from the public session this evening. So now we'll move on to the next order of business, which will be our executive session. I'd like to entertain a motion for the board to go into executive session to discuss matters related to a particular student and to discuss the contract, agreement, and employment history with a particular firm, vendor, corporation. A motion to go into executive session. Trustee Vasilou, second. Trustee Themis, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.